GLEX Global Exploration.
Thank you. The stage is yours. How do you discover a new species? This is one of the most common questions that I receive as a field biologist. And today, I want to attempt to provide an answer to this question by telling a story. I want to tell the story of how I came to discover a new species of reptile in a graveyard in Ecuador and how that inspired me to keep doing that. So about 3.5 years ago, I approached the Explorers Club Discovery Expedition grants with an idea. I wanted to run a series of expeditions to find the lost species of harlequin toads. The harlequin toads, which you are seeing right now here, are infamous among amphibians because they are the most threatened group of amphibians on the planet. More than half of them have already gone extinct, and they are incredibly beautiful, with some of the most beautiful colorations that you can imagine, all in this group. So the plan was to carry out a series of 13 expeditions and try to rediscover species that had already been declared extinct. What does it mean to be extinct? It means that there is no doubt that the last individual of the species is dead. So, of course, with small animals, there is still a small chance that you can find an individual of the species hiding in the most remote corners of its habitat. So I started the search. With the support of the Explorers Club Discovery Expedition grant, I conducted this series of field trips in Ecuador, in the Andes of Ecuador, to try to find and rediscover this extinct species. So we looked everywhere. We started looking in the streams because these amphibians reproduce in cold water and ecosystems in the Andes, trying to look for tadpoles. But we found not a single one. Of course, these species are already declared extinct, but it's deeply painful to go spend so much time, so much effort, and of course, so much funding to go to these remote places and find absolutely nothing. Meaning, we had to declare a failed expedition. So this is very hard as a biologist to come back to the city and confess that you did not succeed in your expedition. So this is exactly what we were doing back at the end of the series of expeditions. When we were going back to the city of Quito, capital of Ecuador, we were very sad and decided to stop at a small house in an Andean town called Amalusa to replenish energy, to have some food there on our way back. So what happens in many small towns in Ecuador is that there's not really a restaurant. You have to basically stop wherever there's a house and ask for the owner to prepare a meal for you. So this is what we did. And we decided to have some of the local delicacies. You can see here is a guinea pig, in my opinion, one of the best dishes in Ecuador. What is interesting about this is that as we were sitting on the table, the expedition team, we were always talking about the stories of the field, what we found, what we did not find. And the lady that was cooking for us overheard our conversation. And she heard the word snake because we were talking about this. And she told us, all right, I know you're talking about snakes, and every time I go to the graveyard, to the cemetery, in this town, I see snakes. And the snakes are brownish, and they live underground. And I thought, that's odd, because what she's describing is a ground snake, a fossorial type of reptile. And from what I know as an herpetologist studying amphibians and reptiles in Ecuador, I was sure that such a thing did not exist in this particular part of the Andes. So I was intrigued. What did we do next? We went to go digging in the graveyard. I know it looks a bit weird. I felt a little bit embarrassed to be doing this, really, but I felt also the urge to try to see if this observation of the snake was true, especially because many times when I listen to a lead like this, can be mistaken. I thought maybe she saw an earthworm, maybe not really a snake. So we started digging, and logically, we had people approaching us and asking, what are you doing? Of course, it's very embarrassing to have to admit that I'm somehow disturbing this sacred ground, trying to find for a snake. And then they ask, why? So maybe sometimes it's easier to come up with another explanation for what you're really doing. But we found the snake. We found the snake. Was a very happy moment, and I want to show you exactly where it was found among the graves itself. So this snake is a ground snake, and I recognize it immediately because it has some characteristics that make it special. They have very small eyes. They are archaic looking, and what caught my eye at first was the presence of this black line on this bright yellow belly. As I said, I had been studying snakes for many years in Ecuador, and immediately I knew this is a new species. Sometimes I get the question of how do you know when a species is new? Of course, it can take years to have enough evidence ranging from genetic to morphological to arrive at this conclusion, but sometimes it's instant. You just know because there's nothing that looks like it. It occurs in a place where you have not seen anything remotely similar. And of course, the exact moment of discovery sometimes can be a little bit anticlimactic, but sometimes can be very exciting too. So this is the first individual that we found of this species, of this new species of snake in the graveyards of Ecuador.
Samantita, tengo otra. Sí.
So this is Amanda. And myself, we found two individuals of this remarkable new species of reptiles in Ecuador. And what happened after that? So something that not many people know, if you are outside of systematics and academia, is that the process of finding a new species is very different from what it takes to get it officially published. So of course, it's very exciting. You are full of adrenaline. You find a new species, and you think, oh, we saved the expedition that was a complete failure. We now forget about the toads. We have something to look forward to. We're not sad anymore. But now we have to do all the hard work, the lab work, museum, and office work needed to formally name a new species. This can take, as I said, maybe 1 or more years. But we did the description of this new species in record time. And a few months, actually 7 months later, we published an article in which they describe not only this new species, but 2 additional species that occur in graveyards in Ecuador. And we decided to name it the Atractus discovery, or the Discovery ground snake. In recognition of the support given by the Explorers Club Discovery Expedition Grant, which made this a reality. Of course, it was not the target of the expedition at all, but we were pleasantly surprised with this and came back with good news. Of course, Discovery was super happy with this encounter of this new species, and they encouraged us to create a video, which I'm going to share with you now.
3 species of cryptozoic snakes have been discovered in remote Andean villages of Ecuador. They are small, cylindrical, and quite archaic in appearance. This fossorial group of snakes belong to the genus Atractus and are commonly known as ground snakes. Ground snakes are the most species-rich snake genus in the world, but few people have even heard about their existence. This is because they are shy, rare, and remain hidden for most of their lives. The Discovery ground snake was found among the tombs of the Amalusa Cemetery, Azores province.
We just discovered this right here, of all places.
It is unique in having a bright yellow belly marked by a black line. The sea-cap ground snake was found on the slopes of Reventador volcano, as well as under stones in a small school in the town El Chaco, Napo province.
La logramos identificar por la presencia de este vientre amarillo brillante que no tiene ningún tipo de marca.
The Michael Savins ground snake was found hidden next to a church in the Andean town Guanasan, El Oro province. Unearthing the existence of these unique and cryptic reptiles is only the first step towards their conservation. Kamai Foundation has begun the process of establishing a nature reserve to protect these ground snakes.
Thank you. After the discovery, I came back to Quito to share the news with the local newspapers. And what I found is that they were extremely excited about the idea, not only of finding the two snakes, but more so of the fact that they were encountered in graveyards. They wanted to know more. So that inspired me. That inspired me to continue the quest and actually come up with a second part of a project which involves a more comprehensive sampling of what is existing in the graveyards of Ecuador and the Andes in general. Now, I have selected actually 3 graveyards in Ecuador that share the following characteristics. They are basically abandoned, or the nature has claimed the graveyard back, meaning they are even less disturbed. The ground in these places is even less disturbed than in other graveyards. This is one of the graveyards I have selected to study in the coastal rainforest of Ecuador. This is another one in the Andes. And as you can see, they all share this. They look like if you are a fossorial reptile, maybe you want to live there. Why? Because the ground is often not disturbed. And another reason is that not many people go there. Maybe we have a lot of species still waiting. And the final graveyard is in the Amazonian slopes of the Ecuadorian Andes. The last thing that I want to note here is that some of these graveyards share the characteristic of overlapping with the distribution of species that I have detected to be new. So in this slide, which some systematic biologists would advise me not to share because I'm sharing the existence of species that are new, but not yet formally described. Thanks to the Explorers Club Discovery Expedition grants, 3 of them, the ground snakes on the bottom of the screen, are already described. We actually have the discovery ground snake in the middle, and the other 2 that you just saw in the video. But the purpose of this slide is to invite you to come with me in one way or another to visit these graveyards in Ecuador, if you like the idea, of go and be part of the discovery of new species. Because many of these, in this case the lizards, are inhabiting these incredible places. Finally, I want to leave you with a question. If you discovered a new species, how would you name it? Thank you.